Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Well, Tony, we sat down outside to record a podcast, and immediately, one, it started raining. Two, there's a plane flying overhead. Three, there's like a flock of seagulls and a murder of crows. I don't know what the tourists on scooters version of that is, but there's a homicide of people on scooters. It's Tony. It must be time for a Buckeye Weekly Podcast.
Time for this place was silent. We're like, this is nice. It's calm, and boom, a whole biker gang of street toughs on scooters just go by, and a plane full of snakes flying above. So here we are. We are on campus. Going to do a listener question show for you today. Plenty to talk about the Rose Bowl, in case anybody was wondering. And so, Tom, let us get going.
All right, let's start with one from @Carla R. Jenkins. Would you discuss OSU's 2022 and 2024 playoff experience advantage over Oregon? Several seniors like Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, and others played against Georgia on a neutral field.
We were talking about this, and I'm like, has Oregon really not been in the playoffs since the 2014, since the first playoffs? And they haven't. And so I think there is some advantage there with the seniors having done that, and also the way they left and feeling like that. Like we played, there were many versions of this game that they would have won, and to walk off knowing that that's how close you got to playing for a national championship and likely winning a national championship. But then also, the whole neutral field. Like this team hasn't played on neutral fields other than that game. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's another thing where it's just a given that, they do that every year in December. Well, this team hasn't. So that is an experience, but Oregon has done that portion of it before. But I don't think it hurts having already been in the playoffs before.
No. And you've kind of faced the do or die portion of it where Oregon did it with the Big Ten championship game, but that wasn't a do or die game. That was a, hey, you do, or you're a 5 seed kind of game. And that doesn't really move the needle in quite the same way. So to a certain degree, I guess, but I think a lot of it is probably negated by the Oregon having played in the Big Ten championship this year, the Pac-12 championship game last year, where even if you want to say there's an advantage to Ohio State having felt the sting of losing that game and Ohio State feeling the sting of losing to Oregon and to Michigan, and you learn your lessons, and Oregon hasn't had to learn any really tough lessons yet this year because they haven't lost a game. They lost to Washington in the Pac-12 championship game last year, and there's a lot of overlap between that team and this year's team. So I think a lot of this, this is not you're playing Indiana in the Big Ten championship game or the college football playoff, and they've never had to do this before. This is an Oregon team that's played big neutral site games before, played, even Dan Lanning's first season, they played Georgia in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta. So they've played some neutral site games in the regular season as well. So theoretically you could see an advantage for Ohio State in terms of having had to have the loss, make the resulting changes based on that loss. And that's something Oregon hasn't had to have, but there's plenty of teams that have lost more games than Ohio State, and I wouldn't say that they have an advantage over Ohio State either.
Well, Oregon also has the familiarity of playing Ohio State.
Sure.
So they may not be familiar with the playoffs, but they're familiar with the opponent, and really that's the more important thing to be familiar with. Mm-hmm. So then it just comes down to something we talked about on Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, just doing your job, the familiarity of the opponent, how much of that is a help, how much of it is a hindrance, and fixing the things that went wrong in that game, but also fixing the things that are going to go wrong in this game, because things are going to go wrong.
Sure. And that's, you're kind of adapting to stuff on the fly. That's nothing new. That's something that, this is a veteran coaching staff, especially on the Ohio State side of things, where Jim Knowles has had to adapt to a whole bunch of stuff with a lot less to work with than he has to work with here. And Chip Kelly the same. And Chip Kelly has coached in not national championship games, but Chip Kelly has been the head coach in the Rose Bowl before, and Ryan Day's been the head coach in the Rose Bowl before, and Dan Lanning's coached some pretty significant games over the years. So it's going to be a little bit of it's going to be a chess match as they sort of figure out, okay, you've played each other once now. does that give one team an advantage versus the other that, hey, Oregon has the advantage because they won, or Ohio State has the advantage because it's tough to beat a team twice, and especially if you're going from playing at home to playing in a neutral site? I guess we'll all find out together on New Year's Day, won't we?
Who do you think wants this game more in terms of who do you think was happier that this game happened? Because
Ohio State, not even question Ohio State, not even a question. Oregon right now, this is one of these things they're never going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon feels like they got hosed because they are an underdog as the 1 seed in the first game they're playing in the quarterfinals. The whole point of being the 1 seed is you get your bye, and then you get a nice, easy warm-up game against what's supposed to be the worst of the teams. No one in the world thinks that Ohio State is the worst of the teams in the field. I mean, you ask Boise State right now, they're going to be like, right. Arizona State, no chance. And so, yeah, this is one where anyway, this is one where the Oregon Ducks have to feel like they kind of got hosed, and that can make you angry, or that can make you frustrated, or that can be. I'm sure they're doing their very best to not have that be a distraction. Yeah. When you say they feel like they got hosed, do you know how I know that? Because they got hosed.
Yeah.
100%. They got hosed by the current format. Yeah. No question.
No doubt. When you look at everybody else's path and it's easier, and you're like, that's supposed to be us. Mm-hmm. And it's not. Like this was not fair for either of these two opponents. And we mentioned on the morning show that whoever wins this is going to be the favorite to win it all. And the only reason they're not right now is because they have to get through each other.
Correct. Yeah. This is by far going to be potentially the most challenging game that either one faces. Maybe the most talented team, the most complete team that either of these teams faces. Again, you get through this game, that doesn't mean it's a cakewalk from here on out. It means whoever wins this game is probably going to be pretty battered and beat up. But then they got to win 2 more games. You probably got to beat Texas and Georgia, or Texas and Penn State, or Texas and Notre Dame, whoever it is. This is not, dust your hands and now it's home free, and it's that's not what this is. But this is also probably going to be the toughest opponent either of these teams face. And, for the first game was real, real good and real, real close. And so you figure this one should be somewhat similar.
Yep.
Next one from @CT_Buckeye. As I recall, Denzel Burke got burned at least 3 times leading to scores. This would be in the first matchup of these two teams. That needs corrected. That's, I assure you that the folks inside the building are aware of that fact, and I can assure you that Denzel Burke is aware of that fact, and I can assure you that they are making changes to the game plan, making changes to everything to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and talking with Jim Knowles, then the questions were like, how do you make sure that doesn't happen again? And the thing I keep going back to over and over again is part of that game plan was just stopping at the sticks, basically. The defense trying to keep expecting the throws to go to the sticks. And so there were some fatal flaws in that, Burke maybe not turning and running because he's expecting to have the throw there, trying to get a first down. Because before that game, Oregon wasn't throwing the ball deep, and they weren't throwing it deep effectively, that's for sure. And they threw it better and deeper in this one than they had any time previously. So the game plan got them. The breakdown in fundamentals for Denzel Burke, because yeah, sure, I'm expecting you to stop here, but I also need to run with you. That was a breakdown as well. So I think the proper game plan, a better game plan, will allow everybody to play better. But also, this is a pinpoint quarterback who has really good receivers, and it's not going to be perfect. And what Jim Knowles said, when you're out on an island, like on a literal island, Tom.
Yeah.
When you're just anything can happen out there, not all of it's good. You just have to bounce back from it. So what I wouldn't want to see is you give up one bad play and then he will bounce back. But fans, they were merciless towards Burke during that game, after that game, and they still kind of view him as that player. I think this is an opportunity to show everybody that that's not who he is. That's not who he was. And this one is something he's been looking forward to. And you can't look ahead, but once he saw the draw, mm-hmm. I guarantee you when we talk to him, he's going to be like, yeah, I want this game.
Well, and I mean, the revenge piece of this for the team on the whole, this is a team that beat you and that caused you to have a whole bunch of a whole bunch of changes, which, ultimately were probably a good thing for the team and for the defense in particular. But it probably was not a real fun 2 weeks, because you remember that was 2 weeks. That was not 1 week and you could go back out there and change the narrative the next Saturday. They had a week off after that game. And then they had the Nebraska game. So then it really turned into 3 weeks, because after the Nebraska game, it wasn't like, well, everything's fixed now. That was Panic City volume 12. That was a big issue. So this is an opportunity for a rebound from Denzel Burke. This is an opportunity for a rebound for the defense on the whole. And Jim Knowles was asked early in the week, how confident are you that you fix the problems versus how confident are you that you think you fix the problems, but you just haven't played anyone as good as Oregon, so you haven't really truly been tested in the way you were then. And you say, well, you always have to be confident. I'm always confident that I fixed the problems. And, but, we'll all find out together on New Year's Day.
It'll be an adventure, Tom.
It will be an adventure. They're now aerating the soccer field on December 27th.
And it's raining.
And and the metal umbrella over our head has a slit cut in it for, I don't know, reasons.
Wind.
Okay. Next over at Colonel Trauman. Can Luke Montgomery be what we were missing and make the run game happen versus Oregon?
I think he helped the run game against Tennessee and what they were doing. And so he played well. That was one thing that there was some of the feedback that he did do well. They're going to continue that rotation as long as things still look good in practice. So he does give you some athleticism. He gives you some full speed. Like I may make a mistake, but I'm going to do it full speed. And they like that aspect of it. Maybe a little less thinking in terms of, they should be here. What am I supposed to be doing? And it worked. And he's a guy that can pull. He's a physical player. He's not the biggest guy, but he's strong and he moves well. So, this will be an opportunity for him to, he didn't get to play against Oregon. I don't think he played much, probably some special teams. But this is an opportunity for all of these guys to show that this rotation may be unconventional, but it has a purpose and it's fulfilling the purpose that they set out for. And if it keeps one guy fresh and he can see what he did wrong and what he needs to do better, or you get more of a game plan in terms of, okay, this is what we're going to do in the next series. When you're in there, this is what I need you to do. There's a lot more feedback and communication that goes in there. So that helps prepare them, I guess, a little bit more. But I am expecting, I went into that Tennessee game expecting no running game from Ohio State. That's not where I am anymore.
No, I think you're going to have some running game at least. And we've seen incredible variation in the interior of the Oregon defensive line over the games that we've watched. We've watched 5 full games now, and even just their last 2 games, the interior of the defensive line, the last time who saw them was getting absolutely gashed by Penn State. But the game before that, they were a big reason why they had 10 sacks in one game against Washington, tying the school record. And that was back-to-back weeks. That's, and I know that there's the idea that they had the flu going through the defensive room. So is that the case? I don't know. Maybe we've heard that before. And we heard that about the Ohio State defense against Michigan in 2021. And then they went out and gave up 45 points in the Rose Bowl against Utah. So we've seen that not necessarily be the solution to all of the problems firsthand over the years. The interesting piece, there's 2 interesting pieces of the offensive line, the guard shuffle that they've been doing with the 3 guards in the 2 spots. One is, okay, you took advantage of, here's what these guys are good at against Tennessee. Tennessee hadn't seen these guys. They hadn't seen these guys in tandem, and they hadn't necessarily looked and gone, okay, when this guy is here, basically the offensive line equivalent of, okay, you've got your running quarterback in now versus your throwing quarterback. It's very easy. Once you know who the running quarterback is and who the throwing quarterback is, like, if Alex Orji's in the game, I know you're probably not throwing the ball a whole heck of a lot. How much can Ohio State adapt, mix and match? And if you're getting away from your tendencies and you're taking, hey, when these 2 guys are in the game, last time we ran a lot of this type of run. Okay, well, now you have to get away from that, even if that worked, because you can't just do exactly the same thing. Because now Oregon's had 10 days to look at that on film.
Yeah, and then they've seen what defensive lines have done while those players were in there. And it's like, well, nobody's shown Luke Montgomery this yet, or he's only done this. So they can change some things up and they will have to be, Ohio State's guards will have to be prepared for more. Now, good thing is Austin Searveld and Taker Shabola have seen everything by this point. They've played enough. They've seen everything. It's really just, how much do they attack Luke Montgomery and try to counter what he's in there for? And like you said, how much does Ohio State change what Luke Montgomery is doing? And if you change what he's doing, have you also negated some of his effectiveness? So it will be interesting to see if that rotation continues as much during the game. And that's something we'll talk with Ryan Day about, or we have talked with Ryan Day about, in terms of just, how do you know when it's working? How do you get away from the game plan? And when you realize, okay, we thought we were going to be able to do this, but now they're attacking Luke Montgomery in a way that so we've got to scrap that. So just adjusting the plans on the fly. They've been pretty good about that, Michigan game aside.
Yeah, and then the other question is, how much are you going to see that rotation? Are they going to go from, I'm pulling up the snap counts right now, which I should have thought to do earlier. Austin Searveld, 46 snaps, Taker Shabola, 39 snaps, Luke Montgomery, 31 snaps. So those are pretty evenly split, pretty even rotation there. Are you going to see that even a rotation for, could it either be due to game plan or due to, hey, it's been another 10 days and we feel like this guy and this guy are the best combination now. So you're really mostly going to see or exclusively going to see those two guys. I feel like you're going to see all three guys, but I don't have a particularly high level of confidence in that it's going to be a real even rotation again, that you're not going to see, hey, more of this guy and that guy as opposed to whoever the third guy is.
Yeah, they've kind of shown their hand a little bit. So, you might want to pull it back a little. I wouldn't be shocked at Luke Montgomery starting at left guard and Austin Searveld starting at right guard. It's not necessarily what I'm expecting, but when they're playing as much as they have, you can't be surprised if they make a change or they go with the two guys that they feel good about, knowing that those two guards have played together now this season against Tennessee. And then you say, yeah, we're going to work Taker Shabola in. And then after the game, it's like, well, it's never happened. We never felt that there was an opportunity to do so. But we're still, it's still part of the game plan.
And I talked to Ross Fulton about this earlier in the week. They ran a different run scheme. They ran a lot of gap stuff, which they have not done a whole lot of previously. That's another thing that now that's on film. So now Oregon has to prepare for that. So that's bad, but bad for Ohio State that Oregon can prepare for it, but it's one more thing they need to prepare for. So, and then are you changing the mix of those kind of plays? Are you running more of those? Are you running those exclusively with these two guys in there? The combination of the different guys, it was Searveld and Shabola at starting the game, but Searveld played 19 snaps in place of Shabola at right guard with Montgomery at left guard, but Montgomery also played 12 snaps in combination with Shabola at right guard. So, yeah, my sense is, and based on Searveld playing more snaps, and based on the fact that you saw more of Searveld at right guard with Montgomery, my sense is Searveld's the guy who they might view as the number one guy out of those two things, and certainly the fact that you can play both guard positions helps there as well. Okay. Next up, from @Chip how has the Oregon approach changed since October 12th? How is it the same? Did they make similar mistakes versus Penn State at all as they did against Ohio State?
I guess we can maybe keep this to the offense side since we're talking about the defense in the next question. But this is Oregon. This is when you've got Dylan Gabriel, you've got the running game that they do. I think maybe one of the bigger changes is Whittington getting healthy and being Noah Whittington, their second running back. They're another up-tempo but patient. They will run the ball and they'll run it well. Dylan Gabriel he's the same guy he was when Ohio State saw him last. He's almost impossible to bring down. Now Ohio State's defense will have to do some different things. They need to attack him more than they did and just see what happens. And maybe drop a little bit deeper and then attack him. But offensively, after watching, it is interesting that they struggled like they did against Wisconsin offensively. That's a little concerning. They were fine against Penn State. They moved the ball down there. I think what Ohio State can't give them short fields. They've got to make them earn it. You've got to go 70 yards every time. And if they get a 40-yard drive in there, 40-yard touchdown drive in there, that's you're just doing them favors. And now you've got to make up for that one, basically. So I don't know that I've seen a ton of changes. They've gone through some injuries on the offensive line. They've gone through receiver injuries. I think unless I'm confusing this with Tennessee, I believe Oregon has started 3 different right guards this year. So they've been up and down in that sense. And we know the receivers have been a little bit banged up. Tez Johnson is back. He's really, really effective. So is this any different than what you saw against Ohio State the first time? I'm just expecting, what we saw before that game was a lot of short stuff.
Right.
They've opened it up more since, including the Ohio State game.
Yeah, and I think I'm expecting, the run game's a little different because you've got Noah Whittington there now, in addition to Jordan James. Jordan James, a very good power back. Noah Whittington, a very, very good speed back, gives you a different element to your game. You go through the leading receivers from the last Oregon game. Evan Stewart, he's going to be there. Now, he had 7 catches for 149 yards and a touchdown. That was by far his biggest game of the season. So you're probably going to see a little less of him. Tez Johnson, 7 catches, 75 yards and a touchdown. He had 140-something against Penn State, I think. So you might see a little more of him. Terrence Ferguson, 4 catches, 62 yards. That's probably about the same. The only thing that's really different from the first Ohio State game is Trayshawn Holden got booted out of that game in the second quarter for spitting on Davison Igbinosun. You figure you're going to have 4 quarters of him, and he didn't do much. He had 1 catch for 32 yards in that game, but that was it. But that was a very, very limited amount of time for him. So that's going to be a little bit of a different mix there. But you add Whittington in there, you add Holden in there, you're not taking anyone off the field. Whittington was 3 carries, 7 yards, and that was it against Ohio State the first time. Jordan James, 23 carries, 115 yards. You're averaging 5 yards a carry with a long of 25. That's a lot of staying on schedule there. That's a lot of 4-yard runs that turn 1st and 10 into 2nd and 6, and 2nd and 6 into 3rd and 2. And 3rd and 2 with a Dylan Gabriel at quarterback and the weapons they have is you have the same conversation about trying to defend Ohio State's offense where it's the quarterback can throw and he can run, and tight end can catch the ball. And the wide receivers are all pretty good. And the running backs are pretty good. Which of these things would you like to try and stop? Because whatever you want to try and stop, there's another good answer for them sitting out there.
I will say one little tidbit for you, Tom. One of the 4 players to ever be flagged, penalized for holding Jack Sawyer is Terrence Ferguson. In 2021, as a true freshman, they were both true freshmen. Ferguson held on, and that probably cost Ohio State the game.
Yeah, that was a great piece, and we've done a show on that. So I'm guessing if you were listening on the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, you've heard it. But just an incredible stat that no starting Ohio State defensive lineman has been held according to the officials. That is remarkable. And I will say once again, no one is saying that they lost to Oregon because we just say, hey, man, this is crazy. That's it.
Well, and there was also a stat that Oregon has not been flagged for holding by their offensive line. So I went through all of the box scores, the official school box scores, and I couldn't find any. And so I tweeted that out, and then somebody replied with screenshots of ESPN's here's 2 in the first 3 games, you idiot. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't believe in ESPN.
Yeah,
but so it's all just research from looking at box scores and the official box scores, and sometimes the information is there and sometimes it's not.
All right. Do we want to do one more? Let's
do one more.
Okay. So from @Ginification, has Penn State's offense improved that much since playing Ohio State, or is the Oregon defense fraudulent? So we mentioned earlier, there is the Oregon may have had the flu piece of that. There's also, that game was inside, fast fry track. That helps a little bit. That presents that presents an easier time throwing the ball down the field. Yeah, and looking at Penn State's offense, I saw the running backs had a much better game. The wide receivers are still what they are. It's just, that is the best wide receiver on that team is a tight end, and the best running back on that team might be a tight end. And there are times when I thought the best quarterback on that team might be a tight end. Not probably, but yeah, I did not look at Penn State and go, wow, I can't believe, I'm learning so much about how Penn State has changed since we saw them play in person. I watched that and thought, what's wrong with Oregon? And, we may have seen the answer to that, but maybe not. It's just that defense was so good in so many of the games that we watched. And then it all just completely went to crap in that one game. They have, I mentioned and Derek Harmon and Jamari Caldwell. Those two guys were just constantly just pile driving Washington's offensive line. Now, I have not watched enough Washington this year, other than I watched the Michigan game and they didn't have a ton of success against Michigan, but they had enough to win. And I have not watched enough Washington to really be able to tell you, like, yeah, their offensive line is the 17th best in the Big Ten. They
do have Enoch Famahi.
Is he starting?
I believe he was. I don't know if he did in that game, but I believe he had won a starting job. But yeah, the running for 292 yards is a concern. I don't care how sick you are. Like that's a legit thing. Aller barely completed 50% of his passes. He did run well. Like just that aspect of Drew Aller running the ball. He ran it against Ohio State. I didn't see anything different from this Penn State offense that we saw against Ohio State.
No.
This is all Oregon.
Yeah.
This is an Oregon thing. And Wisconsin was able to run the ball somewhat with no passing ability against the Ducks as well. So I think that is a concern. And yes, they completely destroyed Washington. I said it before, watching that game, it looked like we were watching the best defensive line in the country with Oregon. They were all firing on every cylinder, all defensive ends, defensive tackles. It was incredible. And then it's like, where are they against Penn State? Because you didn't see them. You didn't see Derek Harmon. You didn't see Caldwell. Mateo Uyunglele was not around. Jordan Birch is neutralized. And I don't think Penn State's offensive line is all that much different than Ohio State's in terms of decent,
Yeah, it's fine, but it's not amazing. And just going through the drive chart from the first Ohio State-Oregon game, 10 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 4 plays, 13 yards. That was the fumble, so that was a drive that got cut short. 3 plays, -8 yards, punt. 4 plays, 74 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. And that was one where Travion Henderson had a chance to pick up the first down and cut it, and they were 1 yard short. Then a kneel down at the half. 6 plays, 79 yards, touchdown. 5 plays, 15 yards, punt. 13 plays, 53 yards, field goal, and then the end of the game. So it was not like Oregon forced. They had one drive where they very clearly got Ohio State on a 3 and out. Everything else was, Ohio State moved the ball pretty well against Oregon the first time. And Oregon, that we've heard people talk about the fact that might have been the best game Oregon's played.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a fun one to watch. Looking forward to this one. So that will do it for this one. If you guys want to hit the thumbs up, if you're watching, we would appreciate that. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet done so. And of course, hit the bell to be notified when we're dropping shows like this when we're going live. And as always, find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. First month is $4.99. Sign up, say hello to us there. Check out the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus as we're talking about this game, previewing it, and all kinds of X's and O's and depth and things like that. Of course, still talking recruiting, team, transfer portal, and all of those good things. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.